Welcome to Bull TV, where we are bullish on Collierville. I'm your host, David Pickler. Bull TV is a monthly show that empowers, educates, and entertains while highlighting the citizens of Collierville who inspire and deliver solutions for a stronger community. Bull TV is presented by Pickler Companies and is proudly produced by the students of Collierville High School. We invite you to watch our show at www.bulltv.show, thebullnetwork.com, and CHSTV 19. New episodes air on the second Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. Central Time. On today's show, we sit down with Mark Heiberger, President and CEO of the Collierville Chamber of Commerce. Join us for this inside look at how Mark has re-energized the Chamber by shining a light on the people who make this town so special. Don't miss this episode as we discuss Mark's journey, how the Chamber serves our community, and why being passionate about serving others makes us all stronger. Today I'm joined by Mark Heiberger. Mark Heiberger is the President and CEO of the Collierville Chamber of Commerce and has been in that role since May of 2019. Before starting with the Chamber, Mark was the Public Information Officer for the town of Collierville from 2006 to 2019. And prior to working for the town of Collierville, Mark was the Director of Corporate Communications for MLGW for 26 years. The majority of Mark's career has been spent in the communications and marketing field, building communication programs and managing the image and reputation for the organization he works for. Mark is a native Memphian and product of Memphis Public Schools. Mark attended Memphis State University, where he played baseball on a scholarship and earned a bachelor's degree in journalism. He also holds a master's degree in communication from the University of Memphis. Mark is married to Ann Heiberger. He has a daughter, Elise, who is an attorney in Denver, and one grandchild, Stella. Mark and Ann are members and regularly attend the Orchard Church in Collierville. Mark, thank you for joining us here on Bull.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be on the show.
Well, we're glad to have you. It's been a long time getting you here, so we're excited to have you on this
Glad
journey.
to do it. Thank you.
Now, Mark, if you have watched our show, then you already have a little bit of a hint about our first question. We always try to get to know our guests a little bit, and so we ask you in 3 words, who is Mark Heiberger?
I have watched it, and I was somewhat anticipating the question. I would have to say that I'm a husband, a father, and a follower, meaning that I am trying to follow God's lead in my life every day.
Those are 3 really good words, and I appreciate the fact that you have that focus on family, on faith, on the right kind of values. That's the kind of person that you are, Mark, and God bless you. So what is your favorite part of living and working here in Collierville?
I think there's a couple of ways I can answer that. One is that I really appreciate what I call the community spirit of Collierville. Mm-hmm. If you've lived here for a while, or if you've just moved here and you've lived here a couple of years, at some point you begin to like and love Collierville so much that you want to take ownership of it. And when you do that, your spirit comes out, and you become engaged. And you become engaged in the issues that affect Collierville, and whether that's supporting schools or supporting our first line public servants. Mm-hmm. You can see that in the community spirit that's in Collierville. And an example of that was the tragedy that happened at Kroger last year. A diversity of people turned out to support the employees of Kroger, to support our first line responders, to support our public officials, and to patiently wait for Kroger to reopen and support Kroger when it reopened. And that's the community spirit that you find in Collierville. But the second thing is what I call the bones or the infrastructure of Collierville. All of the assets that we have, the beautiful parks, the beautiful trails, the great schools, the great business community, the architecture of the town in terms of how our beautiful subdivisions are laid out. We have great leadership in the town. I used to work there, and I know they don't always agree on everything, but I do know that their focus is doing the right thing for Collierville. And the same with our school board. You know, where else can you live and work and have two leadership bodies that actually get along and work for the betterment of the organization that they represent? So I think community spirit and just the general landscape of Collierville really makes you fall in love with Collierville.
You know, you talked again about the tragedy that happened at Kroger, and not only did we see a tremendous community spirit and cooperation among all of the first responders, but that engagement continued well beyond. You know, as you know, we had the compassion group that came together that raised money to benefit, obviously, the family of Miss King and all the others who were impacted. And Collierville is a giving community.
Right.
It certainly is a community of faith, but it's a community of giving. And people who really understand and embrace that concept of community. Yeah. And I know that's really been a big part of your life.
Yeah, it has.
Well, let's talk about that. You know, you are, as you say in your bio, you are a Memphian to the core. But so what has kept you here in the Mid-South for your entire life?
Well, I was born in Memphis. I went to Memphis City Schools. I went to Graves Elementary and then went to Hillcrest High School. Then I went to Memphis State, played when it was called Memphis State, and played baseball there. Then I went to work for Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, and there's kind of a trend here. Born in Memphis, Memphis City Schools, Memphis State, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. Got married, had a child. Most of our family lives in the greater Memphis area. And even though I've lived in Collierville 23 years, and even though I've lived here that significant amount of time in my life, you're kind of if you've worked where I've worked and lived in Memphis all your life and gone to school, you kind of call yourself a Memphian, and you kind of have that grit that the Grizzlies sort of have identified with, but you have that Memphis grit and grind in you, and it just never really leaves you. And I've wanted to always see Memphis succeed and get better and try to do whatever I could, whether it was working for MLGW or working for the Collierville Chamber of Commerce. Anything we can do to help the tide rise for all of us is good for all of us. So it's just that spirit of wanting to give back and help Memphis be a better place.
You really hit the nail on the head. One of the things that I know I learned in my time in public office is everything that happens to us or happens in the city of Memphis has an impact all throughout Memphis and Shelby County. You know, we can't have great suburban communities out here in Collierville and Germantown and Arlington if we don't have a strong core in the city of Memphis. And so, you know, being a fan of for Memphis to achieve its potential is something that really benefits all of us.
Exactly.
And I do believe, as I know you do, that Memphis is a city that still has tremendous potential as we go forward. And I certainly hope that we can all work together to see Memphis and our suburban communities continue to thrive.
I agree. It has tremendous potential, but you hit it on the head too. Its core has to be great for the rest of us to be great. I mean, our suburbs are really in a great position to succeed, and I want to see Memphis succeed and get better, and I think it will, but it's going to take time.
Well, a lot of exciting things on the horizon. Now, before taking your job leading the chamber, you had, again, extensive careers working for the town of Collierville as well as MLGNW. If you would take our viewers here on a little bit of a journey on your progression, you know, as you came from Memphis City Schools and Memphis State to MLGNW and on to the Collierville Chamber. Well, the town of Collierville, forgive me.
I got out of Memphis State, went to work for Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, That was a long time ago, and it was at a time when I already had a degree in journalism, but it was at a time at MLGW when you absolutely had to start at the bottom. They didn't hire you in just because you had a degree. So I took a chance and started out working in the gas distribution department at MLGW, and I worked there for about 9 months, and God began to open doors. And after about 9 months, I transitioned into the corporate communications department at MLGW, which is really what I wanted to do. And from there, things, again, doors began to open. A few years later, my immediate supervisor moved out of state. I got that job. And a few years later, our division manager retired, and I moved up, and I ended up becoming director and working for 5 presidents at MLGW. I was there for Ice Storm 94. I was there for the Thanksgiving tornado that came through Germantown also in 1994, Thanksgiving weekend. Hurricane Elvis in 2000. I was there for all of those things. Had a great career, loved every minute of it, no regrets at all working there. But after 26 years, I was wanting to just, do something a little different in my life. And I had announced that I was going to retire from MLGW and seek something else. At the time, Mayor Curley was mayor of Collierville, and she heard that I was retiring, and I was living out in Collierville at the time. So she called and said, we're starting a public information office at the town of Collierville. Would you be interested? And I was, and so I took the job. And I wasn't the first public information officer they had. There was someone before me, but they only worked there a few months. So I was kind of the first that stayed and really worked at creating a communications program at the town. And all while I worked there, I had a great career there. I learned a lot about the town. I enjoyed working with the mayor and the aldermen. I learned a lot about politics of the town. But I was yearning for one more chapter of my life. I didn't know what it would be, but I was praying and communicating to God that if there is another chapter, another work chapter of my life, I would like that. And the years went by, and I even reached a point where I was beginning to think, well, maybe there isn't another chapter. Maybe God's saying, this is it, so stick with it. And just as I was really settling into that mindset, I looked over, and the job at the Chamber of Commerce was open. I had never really just zeroed in on that job or the chamber or anything, but I thought about it, prayed about it, obviously applied for it. It was the first, most significant time that I completely turned something like that over to God. I turned in my application. I didn't tell anyone that I had applied, except my wife. I didn't call anybody and say, put in a good word. I didn't do it. I wanted that transition to be completely something that God orchestrated. Exactly. And so it happened. It worked out, and this right about now will make 3 years that I've been there. So. Wow. On the one hand, it seems like just yesterday that you came on board, but we've all had such an incredible last 3 years with everything. But having had the opportunity and the honor to serve on the board and being on the Collierville Chamber Board when this happened, the difference you've made has been incredible. And so I just want to thank you for what you've done, and I know what you're going to do as we go forward. And so we're hoping for a very long chapter here in your life. But I do want to follow up a little bit. You talked about your role with MLGNW and having to be really the face of MLGNW in some very trying times. We talk about the tornado in Germantown. You talk about Hurricane Elvis. You talk about the ice storm in 1994. Right. I'll never forget that. What were some of the lessons that you learned about dealing with adverse situations and dealing with people, situations where people were really going through some very trying times in their lives? How were you able to handle that? Well, I think my main role during those times at MLGW was dealing with the media, and I learned early on through a great mentor that I had to always be honest with the media. Don't ever try to spin anything out that's not true. So always be honest. Always be patient, and always be sensitive to the people that are being affected by whatever the crisis is that you're dealing with. And the other thing is, most importantly, is to have a plan. When you're entering into a crisis, even if you're the person that's the face of MLGW, you have to have a plan of how you're going to react in that crisis, what you're going to say, what are the things that are important to the customers of MLGW that you're speaking to. So I learned early on that you have got to be a great planner and always have a plan of how to react in those situations. And I kind of have always, ever since then, worked by this little saying that in times of peace, prepare for war. And so I'm a big believer in preparation and business plans and things like that.
That's fantastic. You talked a little bit about preparation. So tell me a little bit about how did your marketing and your communications background help you as you transition into the leadership role that you have now with the Chamber?
Well, when I joined the Chamber, I thought that one of the things that we could work on and do a little bit better job of was communicating our story at the Chamber, and also communicating the story of our members, and do a better job of giving them exposure through better communication. And I kind of call it popularizing the truth. Some organizations are a little shy about taking a bold step to tell their story or communicate. And as I said, I call it popularizing the truth. And so I wanted us to just take the success stories that we have, the successful initiatives that we have, and also take the successes of some of our members and use those to help tell our story, tell their story, do a better job at social media, do a better job with our newsletters, do a better job in just telling our story as a whole. And so I kind of came from that background. I've often thought that somebody else who took the Chamber at the time I did, if they came along, if they had a background in, say, finance, they might have focused on a financial part of the organization, but I really focused on kind of the marketing and the PR and the imaging and getting our credibility out there and building our credibility, and I thought that was something we needed to work on.
Well, I think you've done a phenomenal job with that. In my industry, we use the term story selling an awful lot, and because number one, I mean, people love to hear stories. They can connect and they can relate to that, and it also takes the businesses that we have in Collierville, which are amazing stories out there in and of themselves. And you think about a story like someone like a Noel Fenderson, or you think of some of the other great stories, John Green. Of course, you're talking about two icons of our community, but there are literally hundreds of other stories out there that, it's something that not only does it help the business, help the individual, but it really helps, the community as they understand the breadth and the depth of some of the stories that are out there in our community. Well, I know that when you came in, I know very well when you came in, that you encountered some challenges. And so what would you say was the most challenging aspect of leading the membership organization of this size, both when you came in and now as you're evolving into a period of greater stability?
I think there's been like two things. When I first came into the Chamber, I think it was redefining what our purpose really is. And I think when you get back to the core of what we're really there for, it's to serve our members. And when we realize that we have a broad and very diverse group of members, small businesses, big businesses, that we needed to really get back to the basics of serving our membership, being there for the small businesses. And I probably talk about that later, but small businesses really need the Chamber more than a big business does. They join for different reasons, but small businesses really need our reason, and they look to us and they really want that help. And so I think the first thing was to get back to the basics and redefine what we're really here for, and then start there and work our way out. The second thing is how to develop programs and services that serve such a broad and diverse group of a membership. And as I said, the different like a restaurant has different needs than a insurance agency, and a bigger business has different needs in the chamber than a small business. So for us to develop an array of programs and services that meet the needs of a very diverse membership is challenging. You have to be flexible. You kind of have to adapt that from year to year. After I'd been there about a year, though, I began to realize that that's not unique to us. Everybody that owns a business has to adapt from year to year to make whatever their service or their product is to their customers meet the need. So, but it still is challenging. It's very fun. It's fun. It helps you stay sharp. It helps you stay on your feet. But I kind of found those two things to be the two most challenging things so far.
It's amazing that you talk about adapt. One of the most misquoted concepts of all time was Darwin's comment. People said, Darwin's all about survival of the species. And he always say that, they would say that it's always the strongest that survive. But that's not what he said. Because what Darwin said was that it was always the most adaptable. It was the ability of that species to adapt that was central to survival. And so I think adaptability for the chamber, for a business, for an individual is incredibly important. So that's good. Now, you've kind of given us some clues about how you might answer this next question. But Mark, what are you most passionate about?
The best way that I would answer that is to say that the priority in our lives is probably what we're passionate about. And so the priority in my life, especially at this stage of my life, is what I alluded to earlier, and that's trying to follow God every day. About 15 years ago, I was listening to a program on the radio, Andy Stanley. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Oh, sure.
But he was sitting in for his dad, Charles Stanley, on the radio, and he gave a sermon about what a tragedy it would be to miss God, to go through life and just miss God. And I was listening, and it really resonated with me. I mean, it really, really got to me, because I thought, he's right. It would be a tragedy to just go through life and wake up one day and say, I missed the opportunities that God was putting in front of me. Now, that's a lot harder to do, or it's easier to talk about than it is to do.
Absolutely.
But I think that we can become so distracted every day in our business, so distracted in life, distracted with social media, that and God is communicating with us every day. He's trying to reach out to us and present opportunity to us. They're not all material opportunities. Sometimes it's just relational, whatever. And you can miss those things. And I don't want to go through life and miss God. So that's what I'm passionate about. Am I great at it? I don't know, but I'm trying. That's what I get up and try to do every day.
I often say that God's not done with me yet, and it's one of the other great quotes that I've really lived by. Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, whenever he would meet someone in the hall, that hey Ray, how you doing? And he always say, I'm green and growing. And and hopefully that's what we're all doing.
Yes.
And that leads to that adaptability and the ability to change, and hopefully just continue to build and improve.
Right.
That's all we can do. Well, Mark, if we take a look at the Collierville Chamber's website, it says our member success is our passion. And so, and it's also in that you're dedicated to helping businesses thrive in there. I'm a really, really big believer also in helping others to achieve their success, to help them build up and achieve their dreams. Can you expand a little bit on the Chamber's mission to place that spotlight on local businesses?
Well, as I said earlier, businesses will typically join the Chamber for one of two reasons, and sometimes for both of these reasons. It's either they want exposure or they want connection to the business community, and sometimes they want both. And as I said earlier, the local small businesses really need the Chamber. They need our resources. They need our marketing ability to help them. They need the funding that we have to help offset the cost of training programs that we can offer to them. And small businesses typically join the chamber for the latter reason, which is they want the exposure. They want exposure for their business. And that's the one thing that, and when you asked me earlier about marketing and about what I call popularizing the truth and telling the story of our members and things like that, that's the one thing I wanted us to get good at, and we're still working at, so that we could put a spotlight on our local businesses. We are doing it, but there are ways we can continue to improve. But that's really how we do it. And our local small businesses are the bread and butter of the community, I think. They're really the bread and butter of the Chamber of Commerce. And I will tell you one other thing. Ever since joining or becoming president of the Chamber, I have my whole perspective of a true small business owner has completely changed. I don't know what it was before, but I mean, when you meet someone that's a 1 or 2 person shop, and they're working 10 and 12 hours a day. Sometimes they're working on Sunday. You see them adhering to an extremely strict budget to stay afloat. Your respect for them just triples, you know. And I'm not saying that it wasn't before, but I did not have the inside look into some of these small businesses like I do today, and have met a lot of these small business owners. They're fascinating people. They're strong individuals, and have tremendous respect for them.
And they deserve our respect.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, I was looking at some information on small business, and I agree with you. I think small business is America. I think it's the heartbeat of America. But I came across a quote from Lori Grenier, who's on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And she said, a small business owner is someone who's willing to work 80 hours a week to avoid a 40-hour-a-week job.
Yeah, that's good.
Because there's no question. I mean, I tell people all the time that at some point I'm going to start working half days. I just had to figure which 12 hours it's going to be. So, but no, the small business owners across this community, they work so hard, and you do have that unique perspective of that, because we have those one man shops, and all the way up to much larger businesses. In talking about what you do and talking about what the Chamber does, really, how would you define success? What does success look like for the Chamber of Commerce?
I have stolen something from you.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember this, but I took it and latched onto it. But at the top of our strategic plan, and on a big tablet that's on an easel in my office, been there for 3 years, says to become a relevant Chamber of Commerce. And what that means to me is that we grow our impact in the business community, we grow our reach in the business community, we grow our credibility in the business community, and most importantly, our value, such that if someday somebody said we're going to disband the Chamber of Commerce, that business community would come up in arms and say, oh, no, you don't. We need them. They're too valuable. And we're not there, but I'm working to get us there. And to me, that would be success, to when people in the community say, we cannot do without the Chamber of Commerce because of the good work and the value they bring. And under that, we have, how do we get there? And it's by building a remarkable organization. And what we mean by that is focusing on membership growth, membership engagement, the programs and services we offer. Financial stewardship is very important to me. And then developing a staff that today has the skills and the talents to really serve our members in a way that they never have before. You know, chambers have evolved. I mean, there was a day and a time when chambers were predominantly ribbon cutting, nice places to be, if you will. And today, chambers, I think, have taken on a new role, from some that are deeply involved in economic development. All are involved in membership growth, membership engagement and training, providing training and professional development for the membership. And it's more of a business. It's more of running a business today. And not that it wasn't, but the times have changed. And so the employees of then are different than the employees I have today. Their specific talents are geared toward helping serve our customers. So I think I gave you a long answer to say.
No, that's a great answer.
That, we want to be a relevant organization. We want to build a remarkable organization within the Chamber, and if we do that, I think we'll be successful.
Well, I want to give you kudos also. First of all, I could not agree more, obviously, about the concept of relevance, because I think it's one of the most important things an organization can be. But I also want to give you a lot of credit, because with the work and the partnerships that you have helped engineer here in Collierville, Collierville has become a leader in the area of workforce development, and I know that we are launching the West Tennessee Workforce Development Collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
That's engaging the chambers, engaging the school system, engaging the business community, and you have been at the very forefront of that from the very beginning. And what an amazing way for us to continue to make this organization relevant.
Yes.
As we continue to develop out the workforce of the future, to be able to attract the businesses of the future.
Exactly.
And so that's going to be very exciting stuff. So again, a lot of people don't know that about you, but I want to make sure that people do know that that you were at the very forefront of that initiative that will be going on for literally years and years to come. That'll be exciting.
Thank you.
So, and I know again you've kind of alluded to this, but what does success look like for Mark Heiberger?
I think it, to me, means living the life that you really want, as opposed to living the life that you just settle for.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that kind of goes back to something I've probably alluded to a couple of times, but for me it means that if you, I have found in living a long life so far that life sure does come a lot easier if you make God the priority in your life, and everything else seems to fall into place. And so success for me as a person, as an individual, means living the life that you really want to live as opposed to the life you just settle for. And there was a you may have heard this, but I'll tell it for those listening. There was a college professor that was trying to teach his students the importance of prioritizing things. And he had a glass jar, and he had some rocks and pebbles and a big rock on the table. Have you heard this?
It's a great story. Continue.
And so he begins to rake all of the rocks and pebbles into this jar, gets them all in there except for this one big rock. It wouldn't fit in. So he poured them back out, started over again. This time he put the big rock in first and raked all of the other smaller rocks and pebbles in, and they all fell into place. And I think that story may have been used in different ways, but for me it symbolizes that big rock is God. And if you put God at first as your priority, everything else seems to fall into place. Now, it took me about 50 years to really figure that out and really come to peace with that, but it is so true. And so I try to put God first every day, having faith that everything else will fall into place. And then success to me means, if I keep living that out, that hopefully someday I'll be able to live the life that I just want to live, as opposed to settling for mediocrity. So
that's fantastic. Well, and that is one of my favorite stories, and I think you told it beautifully. Switching channels a little bit, what would you say is the role of the board of directors for the chamber, and how does the board really assist you, partner with you and your team to becoming the very best that you can be?
The board is a plethora of knowledge and experience about running a business. The board members are a diverse group of people that are CEOs of businesses, they're business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're small business owners, big business owners. Some are executive vice presidents at some of the biggest organizations in town, so it's a very diverse group of people. And I used the words a minute ago, knowledge and experience, but what I like to think of them is they're just a wealth of wisdom. And that's, to me, an important word. I would rather talk to someone who's wise than someone who's smart. And so they're a very wise group of people. Secondly, they're a great group of advisors to give advice, to give direction, to set out help set out the direction of the chamber. I'll give you a great example. During around March of 2020 is when the pandemic really sort of set in. It's when the shutdowns began to happen. It's when everybody said, I guess this is real. I guess this is something we've got to deal with. Businesses began to shut down. There was sort of a cloud of fear everywhere, and especially in the business world. And so I had some board members who were telling me, and it was the greatest advice. I was so appreciative of the time that they took to give me the advice, who said, we do not need to go stick our head in the sand as a chamber. We do not need to be sort of sitting on the sidelines waiting for this thing to pass over. The business community, I'm repeating a board member right now, he said, we need to be setting an example for other businesses of how to stay afloat, keep running your business, keep doing what you need to do, abide by the health regulations, but find innovative, creative ways to stay open and stay vibrant. We need to do the very best again, I'm quoting a board member. He's saying to me, we need to be doing the very best job we can at providing these small businesses with access to these loans, helping them know where to go to get the resources for these small business loans and other things that are coming down from the government, and on and on and on. But there were a group of board members over that first year. I mean, the pandemic, I guess, is still going on, but there was about an 18-month period where it was really serious. And during that time, we had numerous meetings, and this type of advice and this type of encouragement was coming from the board, and I really needed it and appreciated it. And I'll tell you something else board members do, and that is when I get a call from the CEO of Mueller Industries who says, that program you had last week was great. And I'm not saying that happens every week or anything, but when it does happen, the encouragement, because I'm kind of a one-person show. I mean, I have a board, but I mean, it's up to me to run the chamber, But it's great to get a word of encouragement too. So they're advisors, they're encouragers, and another thing they do is help us make connections in the community. Board members know a lot of people. They're very influential. They're respected in the community. And so they help us make connections in the community. They help us get inside organizations that we're trying to get to join the chamber. A great example most recently of that is that IMC Corporation last fall announced it was coming to Collierville. Right. One of our board members spoke up and said, well, I know Mark, I can't think of his last name right this second, but the CEO of IMC, he made a few calls. The next thing you know, they joined the chamber. We've had a great relationship with them, and so they do things like that. It's just a very diverse group of people that has great insight, great advice, and as I said, the thing I value most is the wisdom that they all have from running a business.
Wisdom is very important. Let's talk about another group of I think, very important people in the chamber, and that's the ambassadors. Discuss a little bit about the ambassadors and how do they make an impact on our town?
The ambassador, when I first got the job at the chamber, a few weeks into it, somebody said, and I had heard of them. I had heard about the ambassadors, but I really didn't know what it meant. And one of my employees says, we've got an ambassador meeting day after tomorrow, and I kind of asked some more questions about, well, what do they really do and all that. And when I got enlightened into what they really do, I got excited. I said, well, gosh, we got an army of volunteers here to help us. And that's what they are. We have a group of ambassadors. It's about 30 to 35 ambassadors. They're all volunteers. they're all members of the chamber, and either they're members as an individual or they're members because their company belongs to the chamber. They help us with everything from special events. They work at special events, the parties we have on the patio, to the business awards, to the monthly luncheons we have. They help us with ribbon cuttings. But probably one of the most, I think, valuable things they do is they help us welcome new members into the chamber. When a new company joins the chamber, we will ask for volunteers, usually two to three ambassadors, and they will actually go out and make an in-person call to that company, welcome them in, find out what their needs are, find out what they would like to get involved in. Many times it means recruiting a new ambassador, because a lot of times someone from that organization will want to join the ambassador group. But they're invaluable. They're volunteers. They're high energy. They love the fellowship and the teamwork of working together as a large group on all these special events. Before I came here today, there was an ambassador meeting at the chamber. They all ordered in pizza, and they stuffed 150 golf bags for our golf tournament.
Oh, very good.
Of which a lot of them are going to work at the golf tournament. So they get to do a lot of fun things. They meet a lot of people. It's a great way for them to get connected. And, you know, ultimately under that, they all work for somebody, and they're making connections and making business deals while they're being ambassadors as well, which is all, I mean, I love it. It's all about making connections, building relationships, and that's just another form of it.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, Mark, you know, and again, I think you may have made a comment about this, about something that happened a few years ago, but what is the one event that's had the greatest impact on your life?
Well, I would say that it was the birth of my daughter.
Ah, that's a good answer.
Because prior to that, I was pretty me-centered. You know, I was, you know, life was all about me, sort of. And when you find out you're having a child, and then you find out you're having a daughter, and I'll tell you a really quick story about that. I was driving to work at MLGW one day, and I timed my drives every day at MLGW from Collierville to downtown MLGW to be able to listen to Focus on the Family. If you're familiar with that.
Absolutely, great show.
At the time, it was James Dobson himself who was on the show. I think he's retired today, and they had a 1 week long program on what a father can mean in the life of his daughter. And I listened to the whole 5-day series. In fact, I timed my drive so that it would start and finish just as I rolled into MLGW. And anyway, you know, having a child and having a daughter, you know, made me become less me-focused and me more focused on how to be a good father, how to be, you know, have a great relationship with her. You know, she's grown up today and is a very successful lawyer in Denver and has a wonderful, wonderful family, and recently had a little daughter, which is now my first grandchild. And so I think having a daughter and the day she was born really is the transformative day in my life, as far as my personality, my character, what defines me.
That's fantastic. You know, you've done so much, whether it be MLG&W or the town of Collierville and now at the Chamber. But of all these things that you've done, what would you consider to be the most successful initiative that you have led?
Well, gosh, I think, you know, recently, I think maybe the things we're most recently associated with seem to have the most sort of, that we want to talk about.
That recency bias.
Yeah. And I think the Excellence in Business Awards that we're doing at the Chamber, that was something that when I came along, I wanted to sort of turn the focus of that into a more serious business focus, a more creditable event where the winners actually felt like there was meaning involved when they won these awards. I didn't want it to be a popularity contest. I wanted to take myself and my staff completely out of the way it was. The winners were picked and the nominees were picked, and I'd only been at the Chamber 4 or 5 months when we began to plan the first big business awards. I felt like it was one of those things where you're either going to this is really going to be great, or you're going to fall, one or the other. But if you don't try it, you'll never know. And we did, and the first one was really pretty good.
It was very good.
The second one, unfortunately, we had it, but it was during the coronavirus times, and we couldn't have as many people, but we still had the event. And then we just had our third one, and it was a great event. We had the governor here. We've kind of elevated in our ability to attract great speakers. And so anyway, so recently, I think, one of the things I kind of look at and go, I'm really proud of, is that we've taken something, and each year we're growing it and growing it. It's getting a little bigger and a little better and a little bigger audience and more people. And it's those Excellence in Business Awards.
Well, that's certainly something to take great pride in. I've had the honor of attending the first one and the most recent one, and it's truly spectacular. And we also learned that Kevin Vaughn does a pretty darn good Mark Heiberger impersonation.
He does. He does. My wife got a big kick out of that. She thought it was right spot on, and she always teases me about being very serious and analytical about everything. He hit it right on the head. But
well, I tell you what, and it was funny, but I think the serious message behind it, I think everybody picked up on, was how much you care and the attention to detail that you bring to your job. And I think that's also a part of, I think, the next question, because you have this small but very mighty organization and this great team at the Chamber. You clearly are emphasizing quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. Discuss, if you would, the importance and the tactics of finding the right people to join your team. This is something that every small business is really struggling with.
Well, we do have as you said, a small and mighty team. We have, counting me, we have 4 employees, and that's counting me. And last year in 2021, those 3 employees did 36 special events.
Wow.
And speaking of that, that's kind of a model that we have and I want to on national television. I'm gonna tell you that I stole something else from you that you told me one day. But we've been working to create a model at the Chamber where we have so many quality events per month, per year, that if you just attend half of them, you're going to meet more people than you've ever met. You're going to make relationships. Those will hopefully turn into business deals, business transactions, business partnerships. But back to the staff, we had 36 special events last year by just 3 people. Mm-hmm. As I said earlier in the interview, or earlier in the discussion, in times of peace, prepare for war. And I talked about being a big planner. Well, we plan all those out well in advance. In fact, we have all of 2022 already planned out through December. Who our speakers are, where they're going to be, where the venues are, who the caterer is, everything's already planned. But they do all of that. These 3 employees do all of that, including marketing everything that we do, our social media, our podcast, our website. All of that is maintained just by these 3 people. And as I mentioned earlier, I've kind of put a new focus on the type of employee we're hiring, and that is an employee that has a different skill set and a different talent level to be able to, and mostly it's related to technology, being able to transition the technology, because that's where business is going. It already is, into technology and the use of technology. But to have employees who understand that, who are able to use that technology. And I've always felt like when it comes to those events that we do, and even the technology that we use in the room making presentations, that we should be an example to other businesses. If the Chamber can't organize and pull off an event to perfection, we shouldn't be doing it because I've always felt like we should be example to other businesses that this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And along with the slideshows and the videos that we use, that's kind of from my background as PR and marketing, but I've always felt like that if you can pull off all of that slideshows and videos and all of that at a presentation or at a luncheon that we have, that kind of sends a signal to other businesses that this is how you do it. If you're going to have a slideshow, make sure it works, make sure everything runs, from the little details to the big. I think you really asked me about the employees, but
you're doing a good job.
We have three great employees. I think the number one thing is finding the talent that meets the need of what you're currently trying to do in your business today. I've been very fortunate to do that. I have great employees. They do a great job. They make me look really good. I get a lot of credit at stuff for things that I really haven't done. People come up and pat me on the back and shake my hand and say, this thing you did over here was great, and the whole time I didn't do it. But I do have a great group of employees.
That's awesome. All right, here's your opportunity. So you've done a great job talking about a little bit about yourself, about your family, about your journey. Now, here's the opportunity. Why should a business join the Collierville Chamber of Commerce?
I think there are a couple of reasons, as I said earlier. One is for the exposure of your business, but I think beyond that, maybe even the bigger reason is to get connected to the business community. If you join the Chamber of Commerce, as I said, if you get involved in just half of what we're doing, you're going to meet people, you're going to meet the right people, you're going to meet the influential people in the business community, you're going to meet the leaders in the business community, you're going to meet a lot of our elected officials, and you're going to get exposure to people where you can build relationships, make connections. Hopefully that trail leads you to a transaction, a partnership with someone else's business. I think the other thing is that for me, it's kind of a pride thing, and I think the other reason someone ought to join the chamber, a business should, is that it just shows your corporate citizenship. I mean, it's part of belonging to a business community, a greater business community, and being a part of that, and showing your support for all of the other businesses by joining the Chamber of Commerce. So to me, it's a little bit of a pride thing.
Love it. Well, I think I have 3 businesses that are members of the Chamber, and very proud to support the Chamber. And I do think it's something that every business in Collierville should absolutely join the Collierville Chamber. It is an incredibly relevant organization, and there are great events. A lot of fun, great people, and good time. Mark, you've had the opportunity to come across a lot of people over your tenure, both with the town of Collierville and with the Collierville Chamber. What Colliervillian has made the biggest impact, the greatest impact on your life?
A gentleman by the name of Tom Brooks.
Love Tom Brooks.
I know you probably know who he is, but for those that are listening, if they don't, he was a former alderman many, many years ago. I think he was the owner of the first pharmacy here in Collierville, and maybe a lot of other things.
He also was a member of the Shelby County Board of Education.
Okay.
From Collierville.
Okay. And I had been working at the town of Collierville about a month, maybe, and we had something going on over at Town Hall one day. This gentleman walks in who I've never met. I didn't know who he was, had no idea who he was. Walked right up to me. He was so kind and nice. He reached out to me and just sort of welcomed me into the town of Collierville town hall environment, But after that, he proceeded to sort of, I guess, take me under his wing a little bit and educated over time, not all at once, but just over a series of meetings and a lunch a couple of times, talked to me about the importance of relationships in a small town. And although Collierville is kind of a big town, it still is a small town. And relationships are very important. And he taught me about the importance of relationships in a small town. And then he moved from that into sort of teaching me about the value of the history of Collierville, why things are the way they are. And he wasn't in any way trying to teach or convince me that we had to cling to some particular past history. Right. He was simply saying it's important to understand how this got there, how the decision was made to move the hospital over here or whatever. He talked about history. And through all of the interactions with him, and especially of how kind and nice, I can't put into words what a kind soul, kind gentleman he was. He also told me that everybody has something to offer. You know, everybody, no matter what their background is, no matter where they live, no matter where they come from, they've got something to offer. And I was new at the town. I was trying to learn on the fastest learning curve I could, and here comes this person that nobody introduced him to me. He just walked right up to me and started talking. And I've always looked back on that and I said, or to myself, you know, whatever degree of success I've had in Collierville, I've always attributed part of it to crossing paths with Tom Brooks.
Amazing man. Hard to imagine a better choice. We have a number of great ones. You know, I always talk about if there were a Mount Rushmore of Collierville, who would be on there, and I don't think there's any doubt a man like Tom Brooks deserves a place on that Mount Rushmore. Mark, since we're here filming inside this amazing, beautiful Collierville High School, what message would you have to students here at Collierville High School when it comes to leadership?
I would say that if you're entering the work world and you're kind of starting to progress in that path to leadership, couple of things. One, I would identify some leaders that you admire, and most importantly, some leaders that you respect. And I would observe their greatest attributes, and I would try to model those things into my leadership style. And secondly, I would find me some great mentors. Let me tell you, I have had a few in my lifetime, some that I sought out, others who for some reason took me under their wing. But they were, I wouldn't be here today without the people who pulled me aside and gave me some great advice, wise people along the way who were mentors to me. So I would say to any young person, find you some great leaders, pick out their best attributes, make sure it's leaders that you respect, model those attributes in your leadership style, get some mentors in your life. And here's an important thing. There's a proverb in the Bible that says the bruises of a friend are more valued than the kisses of an enemy. And what that simply means is a true friend is someone who isn't afraid to hurt your feelings a little bit, to tell you the truth, to help you grow and go down the right path.
Exactly.
And so when I say get mentors, make sure you get some that are going to also hold you accountable and sometimes pull you aside and tell you when you're kind of starting to go down the wrong path. Find some great leaders, model them, get you some mentors. And third, when you do get into a position of real leadership and you've got employees that work for you, I had a great boss at MLGW, Herman Morris, who from time to time would tell us that you never know when you come to work every day what's going on in the life of your employees. You don't, even though you may know your employees well and sit and talk and have lunch and you know their lives a little bit, what he meant is you don't know if that morning they had a flat tire, or you don't know if that morning one of their children is sick and they had to get someone to come and stay with their child so that they could come to work. You don't know if the night before their brother was put in the hospital. You just don't know.
Right.
And so the third thing I would say, just be aware of your employees and be sensitive to them, and try to do everything you can to be fair and let them know that you actually care about their lives.
Mark, that is wisdom. That's good stuff there. Thank you very much. You know, you talk about praying to God for a third chapter, and now you're living that chapter.
Yeah.
When you look back at some point in the future, you look back on your career, what would you hope would be your legacy?
Wow. Several things. One, that I would hope that people said he never settled for mediocre, always strived for the best or excellence. When I talked about mentors a minute ago, it's made such an impact on me that I have tried when able to be that for some young people growing up. So I'd hope that along the way they'd say he was a great mentor, that he was fair and a person of integrity, someone you could trust, and that he tried to put God first in his life.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, I want to thank you for joining us today on Bull TV. I want to thank you for sharing your story. This has been such an amazing and wonderful inside look at how the Chamber of Commerce serves the entire community and does it so very, very well. And I'm really grateful that you have chosen to provide this organization with your leadership. And I know the difference that you have made. I want to thank you for your passion, your dedication, your words today, your words of faith, your words of family, and your words of commitment in this community. Thank you for what you've done. You have made a huge difference in this community. And so thank you for that, and thank you on behalf of all the small businesses here in Collierville. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Small businesses are the heart of America's economy. A report by the United States Chamber of Commerce states that small businesses are on the front lines of commerce, driving economic growth and dynamism while boosting job creation and innovation. The report further stated that more than 45% of America's gross domestic product is driven by the small business sector. Approximately 98% of America's businesses have less than 100 employees, with over half of all America's workers employed by small enterprises. And historically, 2/3 of all new jobs have been created by small businesses. Small business is America's business. Thank you to Mark Heiberger for your vision and leadership as president of the Collierville Chamber of Commerce. Of the many wonderful amenities this great town possesses, one of the most amazing is the level of community engagement and creative innovation of our Collierville business community. Through the work of Chamber of Commerce and our town leaders, Collierville has grown to become one of the most attractive communities in America to build and grow a business. This climate they've created is a magnet for business development while still maintaining our small town community values and feel. Collierville has become one of the premier communities in America to live, to work, and to play. With business leaders like Mark Heiberger, Collierville is also a place that truly exemplifies the ideal of giving back and paying forward, of achieving both success and significance. Thank you to each member of the Collierville Chamber for your commitment to our community. Your entrepreneurial leadership will pave the way for a very bright future for our town. And that is my 2 cents. Until next time, I'm your host, David Pickler. Thank you for watching Bull TV, where together we deliver solutions for a stronger community.